In the heart of Palo Alto stands something that feels transported from a medieval fairy tale or perhaps a Gothic ghost story. A solitary red brick tower, silent and sealed, as if guarded its own secrets. Locals call it Frenchman's Tower. But who was the Frenchman? What mysteries lie behind its bricked-up windows? And why did he build the tower together with tunnels, a lake, a water canal, as if he were crafting a hidden world of his own? Today, we uncover the story of one of the Palo Alto's most mysterious figures, Jean-Baptiste Paulin Caperon, better known by his assumed name, Peter Coutts, whose legacy helped make this place a California point of historical interest. Let's go! In the 1870s, a man appeared here in Palo Alto out of nowhere, tall, white-haired, impeccably dressed. He called himself Peter Coutts. He bought 1,600 acres of land, what would later become part of Stanford University, and filled it with lakes, bridges, channels, tunnels, winding creeks, and this medieval-looking tower. Nobody really knew who he was. Some said a count in exile, others a thief who fled France with a fortune, and besides him, a disabled wife, children, and a quiet governess, Eugene Clogenson, whose name mysteriously appeared on the deed instead of his own. The estate looked peaceful, almost idyllic, but underneath rumors spread. People said tunnels ran beneath the hills. At one site I saw what locals believe was one of their entrances, the edge still visible, covered now by a layer of fresh ground. Others claimed the tunnels reached as far as Stanford University, or led to secret chambers where the Frenchman hid what he couldn't take back to Europe. Newspapers speculated that Peter Coutts was no gentleman at all, but Jean-Baptiste Paulin Caperon, a financier and newspaper editor who had fled France during the chaos that followed the Franco-Prussian War. That war had torn France apart. It began in July 1870 when Emperor Napoleon III led France into a disastrous conflict with Prussia. Within months, the empire collapsed. Napoleon III was captured at Sedan. Paris fell under siege, and by May 1871, France was forced to surrender. The Treaty of Frankfurt stripped France of Alsace and part of Lorraine and demanded enormous reparations. Prussian troops occupied the country until 1873, while once proud empire lay broken. Behind the throne stood Empress Eugénie de Montijo, Napoleon's wife, powerful, ambitious, and widely blamed for France's defeat. She ruled as regent, while her husband led the army, and when the empire fell, crowds turned on her. Accused of arrogance and manipulation, she fled the Tuileries Palace and then escaped to England, where she lived the rest of her life in exile. She died in 1920 in Madrid and lies today in the crypt of Saint Michel's Abbey at Farnborough, besides Napoleon III and their son, the last imperial family reunited in silence. When the Third Republic took power, it turned on those who had supported Napoleon. Editors, officers, and financiers were accused of treason and corruption. Among them were journalists from both imperial and republican circles, men like Caperon, who had published a paper called La Liberté. But La Liberté was not imperial. It was republican and anti-royalist, critical of Napoleon III's regime and of the monarchy itself. That stance made Caperon an enemy of the empire and later an uncomfortable figure under the new republic as well. In France, he had lived in both worlds, the press and finance. Some called him a banker, others an editor, and both were true. It was right in that chaotic aftermath that Caperon vanished from France, neither a royalist nor a courtier. He was a man trapped between political storms, distrusted by both sides. When the empire fell and the republic hardened, he left Europe altogether, bound for California. When he appeared here again, he did so not like a fugitive, but like a man of means. His wealth exceeded what any newspaper editor could earn. Some whispered he had escaped with a part of imperial treasury. Others claimed he arrived funded by silent bankers in the French banking world. Either way, his fortune came from France that no longer existed. The whispers grew darker. Local gossip and scattered newspaper notes claimed that the quiet governess, Eugene Clogenson, was not merely his companion, but she was, they said, Empress Eugene de Mojito herself, living under false name in the hills of California. It sounded impossible, yet her disappearance from public view, the sealed windows, and the silence surrounding the estate gave the rumor weight. And when she vanished without a trace before the family's sudden departure in 1882, the legend hardened into obsession. Years later, in 1908, Stanford students hiking across the abandoned estate made a chilling discovery: 11 coffins. Most were wood and decayed, but one, a sealed metal coffin, held the preserved body of a young woman who were well dressed, indicating her rich identity, her face untouched by time. Rumors erupted again. Was it the missing governess, or, as the boldest whispers insisted, the Empress herself, smuggled across oceans and buried in secret far from Europe? No proof ever surfaced, but the coincidence was too haunting to ignore. The story of the tower came alive once more. Even today, new clues keep emerging. Traces of channels beneath the soil, chambers like walls beyond the fences. Maybe they were only irrigation works, or maybe Caperon built more than he ever admitted. The question never disappears. How did a man who edited a small Paris newspaper arrive in California with enough money to build all this? Under layers of clay and roots lie traces of narrow corridors, bricked and angled in ways that don't match farm irrigation in the 1870s. The entrance are sealed now, but the ground still breathes cold air through unseen cracks. Whatever he built, it was meant to endure. And if that network ever existed, most of it now lies buried beneath neighborhoods and university buildings. But fragments remain: stone's edges of once lake built by Caperon, cut channels, walls exposed by recent work near the creek. Each piece suggests the estate once extended far beyond that could anyone ever record it.
Interviews with some of the kids that lived in the 30s, stuff like that. They talked about crawling into caves here. So I think these ends of these caves, I think that's the end of the tunnel that he built. So he built a tunnel from where we drove on Stanford Avenue, where that dam is.
Right.
Tunnel went right under the hill.
Right.
And why? It's because you need to have a flat level of water, and it comes right here, and then it turned, and the water went right down a creek.
So you think the end of the tunnel is here?
Correct.
And because we have this ground kind of different from the other parts, it may be covered deliberately.
Yeah. threw rocks at it here. So he built this, I'm not even sure why he piled these rocks up. Like this one right here, the remainder from one of several stone follies, perhaps constructed as islets within Frenchman's Lake. And then the end of the lake ended right here, and the water, the stream, the lake collected in the water, went down the stream. It then joined the water coming from the tunnel under the hill, and then that continued onto the dairy. And you're right, there's all these other tunnels everywhere. So it was, yeah, you have to picture this. There was no houses anywhere. It was hills. The water, like none of these trees were here probably. So there's a creek that came down from the ditch, with right under this bridge, and went into the reservoir, which we'll see in a second. So the bridge, there's lots of photographs. There's photographs of from the turn of the century ladies in their like skirts with the horse-drawn horse, and they're up there with their hats, and they're and there was a wooden rail at one time, and people would take photographs up on the bridge. There's a lot of signs. Some of the view is blocked now because they're doing some kind of, I think it might be an archaeological, it looks like an archaeological dig. Okay, so right here is the edge of the reservoir. See that? You can see the little, oh, you look up here, you just look up there. Yeah. See the wall and see the little, little block, little brick block. You can get a photograph on the bronze, and I'm going to shade it so you can see it. This is from, circa 1900. There's that block that you just saw. There's the lake.
I see the lake.
And see the trees? See the trees here? They're not the same trees, but they planted the same kinds, because obviously those ones are dead, but there's new ones that look just like that. And up here is the hill. There's no houses up there, it's just some trees. That's just that empty hill. Yeah, that now it's covered in trees and there's houses, but before there wasn't, right? And here's the lake, and then there's these like islands, and I'm show you those in a minute. Islands in the middle of the lake, and there's even these two trees at the very end, and there's two trees just like that at the very end. They're obviously newer, but they look just like that. Maybe they intended that when they fixed it up. So this is the lake, and this whole lake here covered this whole area. So this creek here is new, because this used to be a lake. Yeah. And then the 1906 earthquake happened. It damaged a lot of the buildings. They took the old building material and they piled it in the reservoir and just buried it. So there's all this old building material. This is a good description of. Here you go.
By 1882, the Frenchman's time in California came to an abrupt end. Without warning, he sold his vast estate, 1,600 acres of lake, bridges, and the red brick tower to Leland and Jane Stanford, who would soon transform the land into the heart of their new university. Within weeks, the livestock were sold, the fields emptied, and the household dissolved. He closed his local accounts, settled quiet debts, and vanished from the Bay Area as suddenly as he had arrived. He and his family slipped away without a word, no farewell, no newspaper notice, no forwarding address. Shipping manifests later showed their passage east through New York. The mysterious Peter Coutts had already returned to France. There, under his real name, Jean-Baptiste Paulin Caperon, he lived out his remaining years. His death might have closed the story, yet it didn't. The tower remained, the rumors endured, and the silence around his departure only deepened the mystery. Maybe that's what the Frenchman wanted, not to be found, but to be remembered through mystery. He left behind no confession, no record of his past, not a single portrait of himself or his family. The Frenchman's tower still stands, silent, watching. Was Caperon a thief, an exile, or a man trying to build a new identity from the ruins of his old life? The windows remained sealed, the tunnels remained half seen, the coffins remain unexplained. Locals still whisper that on a foggy, heavy night, a tall figure appears along the ridge, and a woman's silhouette lingers near the base of the tower, shapes that fade with the morning light. Perhaps they are only stories, born of curiosity, or perhaps they are reminders that the past is never truly buried. It waits beneath the earth, asking to be found. And so the mystery endures of the Frenchman, the Empress, and the tower that refuses to give up its secrets. If you enjoyed uncovering stories behind the Frenchman's Tower, subscribe for more journeys through history, art, and hidden places here on KWESTRAIL. Stories, roads, and notes. Every landmark has a secret. Let's keep discovering them together.